Hey everybody, hopefully you can hear us. I see waves. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Forgive us, we're not Zoom producers, so if something goes wrong during this broadcast, like Ed disappearing into the background, we apologize up front. So we are looking forward to having a great discussion with you guys. Let me make sure that I did hit record. I did. So we're recording this. This is so exciting. So welcome. We plan today just to share with you a little bit about the book. Many of you that are on have already read the book. So we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the book and what you would share with others as little nuggets that you got from the book. And then we'll wrap up talking a little bit about some contests and some fun that we'll have for the rest of February, both Valentine's Month and Black History Month. So one thing we did want to share with you guys is I think we officially hit publish on the paperback version of the book on January 11th.
Are you ready?
So just about a month. And is that you, Mom? You need to put yourself on mute, Mother.
Sorry.
Okay, Ed's gonna mute you.
I got you.
So since then, we have sold just over 100 copies, so that's exciting. And we're so fortunate for those of you who have already supported the book. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to you all continuing to support and share with your friends after today. So just over 100 copies in about a month. So we're excited about that. So today we'll talk a little bit more about the book. There's actually a couple of passages that Ed and I will read. And then we have some friends on the line that are going to share with us their early reviews and what they thought about the book. As I said, we'll talk a little bit about the launch contest and where you can tune in for more. We're really excited to have some opportunities coming up to speak with some podcasters and things like that. So there'll be opportunities to tune in for more later. And then we just want to have a discussion. So for those of you who want to share, we'll have you unmute yourselves at that time and share a little bit more about the book. Or if you want to ask us questions like, what were you guys thinking when you went through this? Or, how did you come to this conclusion in terms of how to structure the book? So we want to leave time for you guys to have some discussion with us too. So hopefully that'll be great. So this is the book synopsis. We're not going to read this. We're just going to kind of let you guys read this as we read different passages from the book. But if you don't yet have the book and want to buy it, you can scan that QR code. Can they see it? They can't see it and they can't see you.
When it comes out.
But you can scan that QR code if you don't have the book yet, and I'll take you right to the Amazon page. Okay, so I'm going to start. Let's see. We were talking about what sections of the book we thought would be good to kind of read with a crew of people. And of course, we like the whole book, so it was a little bit difficult. But I think one of the most illustrative things that we went through during this experience was really being able to articulate and identify our needs. And so we talk a little bit about that in the book in terms of our exercise that we got from one of our very first marriage counselors on identifying our needs. And the way that I tell the story, actually I tell it here, so I'm just going to read it. If you can't articulate what you need, not want, need, then they, meaning your spouse, has no chance of coming close to meeting them. During one of our very first marriage counseling sessions, our homework assignment was to write down our top 10 needs in a relationship. OMG. This was exceptionally hard for Stacia. In fact, even when the therapist was giving the assignment and the word need came out of her mouth, Stacia says she started sweating. It's true, I did. She had a physiological response to just the word need. She even called her best friend afterwards and droned on about how ridiculous it was and that she didn't need anyone. While it's true that we shouldn't expect any human, including our betrothed, to make us happy, this assignment wasn't that. This was more along the lines of need. To know that the other person believes in them, to be respected, to feel safe, to be listened to know that they are understood and appreciated, and not that they need to think or behave as the other person does, to know that they can trust their spouse, to know that nothing was too hard to talk about and resolve, to have true companionship and friendship, to have spiritual intimacy and alignment, to feel peace and tranquility in the relationship. For this marriage to work, it was going to take individual and collective reflection on their history, hangups, and norms, honesty, vulnerability, and much more. In reality, this is more than anyone, including Anastasia, bargains for when they say I do. So that for us was a really important passage, because that was the time that we realized we hadn't had those conversations at all about need. It was hard for me to go home and write down my top 10 needs. I think I stopped at like 3 and was like, that's it. I can't come up with anything else. It's like trying to get blood from a turnip. But I did complete the assignment, and I think it really helped us as we moved through this most difficult part of our relationship.
Yeah, and I'll just jump on that. I mean, like Stacia said, writing about what you need, especially as a guy, it's difficult to always put into words kind of like what we need, because I think our natural inclination is to say, I don't need anything, right? I'm the man, I'm strong, I'm going to provide you, because naturally we think of ourselves as providers, but there's still a time that we need certain things. I think there's one part in the book where Stacia talks about, me understanding what I needed from her, to just really be open with that in the relationship really helped us. I know writing that list as well for me to describe that and talk, I mean, it's hard to put words around that. I don't know, I didn't have a background of knowing how to share. As most little boys growing up, you're taught to hold it in, or you're taught to toughen it out, stand up, dust yourself off type thing. So sharing those emotions at that time, I mean, it really opened my eyes to that, this is for the relationship to be successful, we were both going to have to find ways to get comfortable and have those honest conversations about what we felt we needed, and be able to open and share and hear and receive it, and be able to action on those as well.
Now you're going to read this little part here, huh?
Okay, I'll read my little part here. And this is really kind of like the tail end of the book, kind of like where we just kind of like summarize really about, kind of like what happened. Like, most of you read the book, you kind of like know what happened, but really at the end of it, what did we really get out of it? What was the point, and how do we make, success out of this? So I'll just read a couple sentences from this. So, there's now beauty for the ashes that our relationship fell into. In a strange way, doing the work together and individually to recover from our affairs allowed us to rediscover how to love each other and ourselves even more deeply. The soul searching that we had to do allowed us to forgive one another, and importantly, forgive ourselves for straying. Both of us have gained skills about how to protect the marriage by recognizing the triggers that led down dark paths and to stop the spiral before it starts. Now, the work never ends. It is a constant process of noticing when one of us feels off, unseen, or unheard, and talking about how to remedy those emotions in a healthy, marriage edifying way. We are relishing in our rebirth and recommitment to one another, our increasing faith in God, and our soul in love. As the title of this chapter suggests, we are no longer live in fear of violating our vows. What God has joined together, let no man, including us, put asunder.
And that's so important, because a lot of times you'll hear people say, I probably said it before we went through this, I could never trust someone again. If they violated my trust in this type of way, I don't think I could ever trust them again. And we can promise you can. It's awe-inspiring, but I can promise you that it's not in our own strength that we learn to trust each other. That's why our little shirts, I don't know if you guys can see them, but they say power couple. And it's got like the little Wi-Fi symbol here, but underneath it says powered by God. And so that's how we were able to learn to actually trust each other again. I don't walk around wondering, what is he doing on his phone? Who is he talking to? Who is he texting? What messages are in his inbox? And there was a time in which I never thought I would get to this place again of not having that constant fear and worry. But it is absolutely possible. And that's why we wanted to tell this story, right? Is so that other people could understand that even though you go through what you might deem as the worst in our marriage vows, it is possible to actually get through it. But you do have to be extremely committed to doing so. And whatever your spouse is feeling at that time, you need to sit down and talk about it and not let it fester. And I think that was a big problem for us, was letting things fester.
Yeah, let things fester and probably not taking the time to sit down and really listen to each other in depth and really taking it. I think one of the things we learned from our counseling session was just like, taking that input in or reflection from the other person, and then really kind of like probably regurgitating and say, okay, what I understood you to say is, and then kind of like understand, like, you might interpret it different. So they might have had something they said to you, you heard it. And we all do this. We hear certain things, and then if we repeat it, someone says, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, or what I was saying was, just because it's easy for us to translate something in all what we hear and put it out as what we saw or what we heard, but really that's not what the person actually really said, right? You think about the words that they say. I mean, we have to pay attention to those words and have the fortitude just to say, listen, I heard you say this. And then you might say, okay, now let me understand, this is how I interpreted it, right? So it's that ability to really take it in, digest it, and then really be able to regurgitate it, and then have that person confirm if you really understood it. That's another thing, really just understanding from one another's point, like what we heard and what we knew and what we felt about it.
And that's why we included discussion questions in the back of the book. So things for you on your date nights or on the nights that you committed to spend time with each other. And then one of our best lessons from one of our pastors was, you two have to make sure that you're a tight unit, really like each other, respect each other, because those kids are leaving. Okay. So if you make it all about the kids, you can be in trouble when those kids leave your house. So whatever you do, set time aside for yourselves to make sure that you're not talking about the to-dos of the week, the calendars and rushing kids from here to there, but you are spending time really making sure that you know where each other is at any one particular point in time. And we really thank our launch team for giving us the suggestion of including some of those discussion questions in the back of the book. Maybe one day there'll be a full-on workbook as a part of this series, but it is important to make sure you're having those regular discussions with your spouse. So instead of hearing us keep talking about what we think about the book, we thought we'd bring some of our friends on to talk a little bit about their experience in reading the book. And so I see our lovely Anderson family there. Kelly's hair is looking especially fabulous. I mean, just especially fabulous and curly. And so these are our fantastic friends from Indiana. We met them, I met them when we moved to Indiana and our kids grew up together. Ed actually knew them from his engineering days at Michigan State. So we all go back a long, long way together. So thank you guys so much for being willing to share. Go ahead, floor is yours.
Wow, it's an honor to be able to be a part of this with you all. Anastasia have been just an important part of our life, important part of our own marriage journey. My initial thoughts as I read the book was, wow, I just loved how authentic it was, courageous for both Ed and Stacia to give of themselves and share their story this way. And I truly believe it's going to be a gift for so many. And what I love about it is it's not only talking about what has happened, but also some of the key learnings that they had along the way that help them get back to finding one another in the way that God would design our marriage to be. So, and it really, for both Ari and I, we talk about it. We were talking about it last night at date night. I mean, we continue to find places within the book that we want to go back to and reread. And so even after 23 years of marriage for us, 30 years of dating today, there's still so much to gain from it. So I truly believe that it is going to be very impactful. So I'm excited about what's to happen. Something that resonated with me that I wanted to share and just a reflection, and then I'll pass it over to Arvi, is, right in the initial chapters, there was the discussion about your your first counseling session and sharing of needs. And I think you were just going over that and how hard that is. And I reflected on that more from just even our own personal journey. How much have we really done that along the way? In some ways, yes, we have, but I think you have to be really, really intentional and also really make sure you put the fear away. Because what it made me think about is what really prevents you from being able to do that. This is the person that you're closest with, you're probably spending the most time with. And what is it that gets in the way of you being able to do that? And right at the core of that is fear. And it made me think about how God says that, we should not have a spirit of fear. So you really have to rely on Him in order for you to get over that fear of how is it going to be perceived? If you do share it, will it be accepted or ignored? All those fears that are associated with you not openly communicating what you need, you have to rely on Him. And I think that's a part of what God actually intended with marriage, that we would be reliant on Him to be our fullest selves, to really be in touch with who we are so we can live out the purpose that He has intended. So I will tell you that part was really, really resonated with me, and I've thought about it pretty deeply. And then I love how you go on and talk about what needs really mean, because it's real easy to say, okay, let's make sure we have $10,000 saved by the end of the year, right? That's a a want or desire, but that's not your core emotions and your needs, fundamental needs to make you feel like you need to be loved, how you need to be loved, how you need to be validated, appreciated. All of those things are things that are really a lot harder to communicate. So let me hand it over to Arby.
I agree with that. And I want to, for me, I agree with everything, of course, that Kelly said. And I've had the privilege of knowing Ed and Stacia for many, many years. And one of the things that happened that kind of got me, really grabbed me about this book is, of course, there were a number of periods that, Ed and Stacia and us were close, and our kids were growing up together. So we remember vividly some of these pivot points that are talked about in the book, where they were here, but then they were in out on the East Coast, and then they eventually moved to Dallas. And one of the things that really grabbed me was there was a part in the book where Ed talked about, or Stacia talked about, one of them were talking about how there was a period, and I'm sure he's still there today, but Ed, around the house, I remember when I first sort of started coming over to his house, whichever house it was, I had never seen a guy in a relationship, in a marriage, really grab on to household responsibilities the way that Ed did. And it had such an effect on me. And now I know Ed and I have never talked.
Thank you, Ed.
Ed and I have never talked about that, but I remember we really should talk about it, because it just came out at me in the book. But because we would go over to Ed's house, and Ed had he was like, juggling plates while he was doing laundry, while he was helping the kids, while he was cleaning this and doing that. I was like, my God, Ed is doing, I just never seen a person be so assertive. And I walked away thinking, oh my God, what a strong, and healthy, relationship that is. Mm-hmm. And, when I read the book and just reflected on what was actually happening in that period, when you take the total circumstances, the key thing for me is, that is not, sometimes the work around the house and what you see a person doing is not necessarily connecting with the other person. That's not communication. That's not, work does not equal commitment all the time. If that's not what the other person, if that's not how the other person is receiving that. Yeah. Because while all that was going on, you know, when you read the book, you really understood that there were gaps in other places. And my, you know, my understanding, my appreciation of marriage, I think has really, I feel like has gone, maybe it's not at the 200 level course, but I feel like it is now because I used to, I literally used to think, as Kelly said, we've been together for 30 years now. So I have matured a little bit, but I know at one point I used to think, well, you know, you can really tell when a couple is doing great, you know, just because how they communicate and how they partner. I've since learned that you can tell nothing by how a couple interacts when in your presence. It really is about all the things that go on in this book, that they talk about in this book around communication and the need to have needs met. So again, my understanding of relationships has really grown and through this book. And you know, a big part of it, the last thing I'll say is a big part of the book talks about, you know, extramarital relationships and how that happened and how you recover from that. But this book is good even for people who aren't dealing with that. I mean, it's great that that's talked through and how you heal that. But I mean, I feel like I was telling Kelly, I mean, I feel like, you know, marriage is like there's 100 ways. I feel like there's 100 ways that a marriage can fall apart. And that's just one way, but this book deals with a lot of other pivot points as well. So I just think there's a lot that can be learned.
Thank you guys so much. And that's exactly what we wanted people to get out of it. It may not be the extramarital affair issue, but there's always something that you just want to make sure with your partner that you really have that core understanding of how they understand and receive love, the love languages that we've all heard so much about and read about. And one of the things that I feel like Ed is better at than I am, but is getting our minds really around unconditional love. And that means I'm doing for you without the expectation that you do anything at all for me. And that's how God loves us every single day. We wake up, we don't always do the right thing, and yet here he is holding us in the palm of his hand. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. And those of you who have read the book will remember there's a part in there that we talk about how important it is to build your tribe well before you need them, because you don't know when you'll need them. And the Andersons are definitely a part of our tribe. There were times during certainly Ed's affair, because we lived in Indiana at the time, that I would have to drop the kids off at their house and say, don't ask me any questions. Like I can't have the kids at home right now and deal with this. And they're such beautiful souls. They're like, absolutely. And not only do we drop the kids off, they get to bake with Aunt Kelly and have all kinds of fun in the process. I just want to reiterate and publicly thank, obviously, the Andersons for being a part of our tribe, because I cannot overstate how important it was to know we had other people we could count on, even if we weren't yet willing to be completely honest and transparent about what was going on, that we could at minimum say, don't ask me any questions, but take my children and know that your children will be safe and cared for and loved. So we really appreciate you guys.
And another thing that Arby talked about too, you know, he might have said, hey, I see Ed, I come over there and it's all organized stuff. I mean, part of that was Arby was an inspiration. So Arby, you might have come up to my house and said, oh, Ed, I come over to your house. I'm like, how's this dude doing all this? He's got picking up kids. He's got them taking them there early in the morning. I remember Brett was going to hockey practice and you were getting up in the morning doing that, going to work, coming home. You know, I mean, your schedule seemed even more hectic. I was like, okay, if Arby can keep it together and he has a high power wife like mine, I can do. So there's a little bit of inspiration
there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of inspiration. And
That's great. That's great.
It was both ways. I'm telling you, it was
That's
mutual, because
amazing.
you were quite the inspiration for Arby.
And what Stacia said too about the whole love languages, I mean, that my thing about order and stuff, that's really on me. That's my thing. So that's another important thing to remember too. You might have a thing that you do and you might say, oh, this is important for me and I'm going to do it for the other person. But if it doesn't resonate with them, then it's probably misdirected energy. So, I mean, it's not saying Stacia doesn't like a clean house. She does. But that wasn't the most important thing that she needed. especially when we were going through these issues. I mean, she needed me to be present. She needed me communicating with her. She needed to be talking us to have conversation about what it was that we were feeling.
And or for you to say, listen, I want you to appreciate the fact that I went and picked up the dry cleaning and I took the kids. Like, because for me, I was like, that's what you're supposed to do. I do that too. I'm not thanking you for that. That's just what we do to run this household. But he needed the thank you for that. And
we get it. We get it.
So, well, thank you guys so much for sharing. Next up,
we're so excited for this and so excited for what this is going to mean.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have our baby cousins on phone, I think, and they have a baby too. So just in case,
Stacia, they just put in the chat that Carter was being a little fussy, so could they go later?
Okay, yep, perfect. We'll move on to the Spearmans. Thank you. Yeah, they have a baby. He's like 2 months old. So he's going to do what he's going to do, and we're going to roll with Carter's program. The Spearmans are on, and we have known the Spearmans also since we lived in Indiana. Mr. Roy, as he's affectionately called by our children, was their piano teacher and worked with Ed. And I see the Seatons are on, so worked with Bryant too. And then they followed us down here to Texas, which is fantastic. We have much more Indianapolis type weather today. So I think Roy is wearing his scarf because it's cold out here, y'all. It's like 18 degrees and snowing, which is not normal for us in Texas. But we are going to have them share their thoughts about the book too. So Roy and Yolanda.
Nope. Nope.
All right, so we were just having an internal debate on who was going to start off. So I guess I've been tagged as it. So thank you, Ed and Stacia, for the opportunity to jump on and talk about the book, and how it resonated with us. And hello to everyone that we may have not met yet, or the folks that we have met from Indianapolis. Good to see everyone on. I will try to be as brief in my remarks as possible, and make sure that that we're sharing with you, out of the abundance of the things that we gleaned from the book, what few nuggets can we take and share with the larger group. So I'll go first, and I'll stick to my notes to make sure that I don't go too far off. So if I get a little bit long-winded, my wife, she's gonna nudge me in the side of my in the side of my ribs. And yes, Indianapolis weather, we all moved away from that cold weather, and look where we are today. Quite a bit of a cold snap. But as I reflect on the movie, again, the book, and how it resonated with me just individually. Yolanda and I were talking about it, and it's about shared experience. That the idea that husbands and wives go through very difficult times, and sometimes we feel like we're in it alone. And Yolanda and I were sharing a moment ago that it just helps to validate that, hey, yes, what Ed was feeling and saying, I can understand that, because we've had similar conversations, and likewise with Stacia. Yeah, the way that things were happening in her circumstances, and with the family and kids and career and circumstances that lead to an affair. Yes, that is a shared experience, and even is true for our story. And one of the other things that helps to help that come home is the idea of the village, and having the village around you in advance. And this rings personally true for me, because in the aftermath of our situation, I did reach out to Ed, not knowing about this, right? About We Redo, and the journey that he and Ed, and Stacia were on at that time. And it just kind of rings true. So many of us guys, we think, well, I'm in this alone. No one would understand what I'm going through. But if I had known what I know now, how much more could my situation been different if I had just reached out, picked up the phone earlier to say, hey, my guy, I'm going through it. So I encourage all men at whatever stage you're in your marriage, single, been at it for a while, or divorced and looking for the next opportunity. Reach out. It's not a lone wolf mentality that's going to help you make it. It's the village that's going to help you. And then the last thing was the book really resonates, and you'll see slices of it throughout the entire book. The connection with faith in God, and allowing mentors in your life, spiritual grounding to really help you through. And it especially resonates with me in that I grew up in church. You know, I was church musician, but the same things that Ed was going through in his situation with pornography and relationships and emails and text messages that were not appropriate. I'm a church musician, right? You know, I'm supposed to, well, I guess some people would say that's kind of what y'all do. But having the that centered ground in your faith is going to be important at your I do and your redo.
That's great. I love that. At your I do and your redo. Miss Yolanda, affectionately known as Baby Girl.
That's it.
Thank you. I will start off with saying that I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful journey. When the book was emailed, I looked at my email and said, wait, I didn't get it. And then Roy said, oh, I got it, Baby Girl. And I was like, okay, good, give it to me. And I read it that same night that Anastasia actually emailed it, because I love to read. And one of the things that I can say is we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. As challenging, as hard, as gruesome, as fearful as that is, we just have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then you also have to be true to yourself. You have to know yourself. I was sharing with Roy when I was reading the book, I found myself doing like this. Yeah, I got you. Yep, I felt the same way when you were talking about when Ed was sick and the ex-girlfriend brought over some, chicken soup. And I told Roy, I was like, you like, these are conversations that we have. Like, you would absolutely think there's nothing wrong with that. But as a woman, I'm like, no, this is inappropriate. These text messages, this and what this is saying, that's so inappropriate. And so just being able to see that someone else wrote about that, because sometimes you think, okay, maybe it's just me. Am I crazy? Wait. Okay, so maybe I'm not crazy. Yes. So it just was validating to me to know that, yes, girl, those feelings that you were having, everything that you were going through and experiencing, it's normal. And then I also found myself looking or reading the book and being able to look at it through different lenses. So I looked at it as someone who is a betrayed spouse. My husband had an affair, so I'm looking at it through that lens. And then I also was able to look at it through the he-do lens. And then I looked at it through the she-do lens, and I looked at it through the redo lens. And so what I was sharing with Roy is that no matter what anyone goes through, if we open up ourselves to allow us to just walk a mile in their shoes, to understand it from the lens or the viewpoint that they're at, not that you're saying they're right or wrong or indifferent or anything like that, but you allow yourself to look at it through a different lens, then you can be more understanding, then you can be more forgiving. Because when it comes to the needs, I'm like the same thing, like, you want me to applaud you because you're being a dad? I mean, duh, you're supposed to be a dad. You're supposed to look, you took me from out of my mama's house. You're supposed to, take care of me and things like that. But that's just from my lens. Like, well, from Roy's lens, it wasn't necessarily, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, but do you appreciate what I'm doing? Do you affirm what I'm doing? Do you validate that this is what I'm doing? And so looking at it through that lens got me to thinking, wow, I dropped the ball with my husband's, but now I know better. I definitely dropped the ball with our oldest son, but that youngest son of us, the youngest son, he will come and let you know, hey, look at what I did, and you better say good job. Yay, you did it. So he is already learning that's one. I'm already learning that's one of his needs, to be affirmed, to be validated. And so that's good, because again, you can look at it through different lenses. That's not my love language. Do like, I don't want to hear your words. I want to see actions. But my love language and his love language are totally different things. But when you look at it through, then you can understand. And then the final thing is definitely, as has been mentioned, that village. When I first learned of Roy's infidelity, I was here hundreds of miles from home, had nobody, and I received very bad advice for me, which was, don't share this with anybody else, because you don't want other women to talk bad about your husband. And I'm like, that's not good. Like, who does that? Eventually though, I reached out to Stacia. Had absolutely positively no idea about We Redo, but it's just so important to, as Roy said, talk to one another. You got to take these masks off, because if you've been married for 1 year, 1 month, right, 25 years, we all know that marriage is challenging. And though your issue may not be my issue and my issue may not be your issue, if you find that community and that village where you feel comfortable, then as Roy said, what things could have been avoided, what things could have been different. And I just appreciate—
Listen to that God voice in your head.
Yeah, listen to that voice. So I'm appreciative to have had the opportunity to read this. I'm actually debating on, we've got some older kids that are thinking about marriage and wanting to be engaged, and I'm like, yeah, this will help you, and it's an easy read. Oh, sorry. It's an easy read. So again, I'm appreciative, and I'm just thankful for all that was gleaned, and all of the, yep, girl, you are not crazy.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. And you're right, that affirmation that you're not crazy really came from both sides. And that's what we just heard from the Spearmans, that, both Roy and Yolanda were like, man, what I was going through, or what I thought at the time wasn't crazy. I just wish I had reached out. And I'm just going to go on record saying this. You guys can disagree, but I'm sure you won't. Most of us were raised with, don't you air your dirty laundry, don't you talk about that kind of stuff outside the household. And I feel like that's why we have so many issues when it comes to our relationships, because we never learned that it's okay to actually share that, so that people can give you helpful, not hurtful advice. So that's one thing that we had to get over that fear in doing this book too. And I'm sure there are going to be people that read it and they're going to suck their teeth and be like, I wouldn't have shared that, and I can't believe they talked about that. That's for them. But for us, God said there were so many people that needed to see other people be transparent and discuss these issues. And you guys just gave us the perfect example of why that's so very important. And then the last thing that I'm going to share real quickly, and then I think he wants to share something, then we're going to go to, I think Ryan and Megan have quieted the baby, so we're going to go back to them, is that, before we decided to release this book, we did share it with our children. That was the biggest hurdle, was we're going to have to tell the kids before we release this book, we're going to have to let the kids read the book. Now, of course, they're young adults, so they can absorb this information and understand it for what it is. And, I was sweating bullets, and I don't want to tell them, and both of their reactions were very much them, in the way that they reacted. Alexa being a sociology major, like, this is her life. This is the kind of stuff she studies. And, her first words were, I'm really proud of you guys. And now I'm going to cry. I did not expect that. And she said, I'm really proud of you, because it does take a lot of courage to tell this story and to put this out for the world to see. And I thank you, because you have now given us a roadmap of things to look for and avoid when we're in relationships, going forward. So I felt like that was really super duper important. And then Christopher, I'm just going to tell this story really quickly. Those of you who know Christopher is, he's kind of a compartmentalized thinker. And his first response was, I knew something was wrong back then because I wanted to watch the season finale of Naruto. and you yelled at me and told me no, that I couldn't watch it. And then the next day I went to school and everybody was talking about Naruto. And I'm like, boy, that's what you remember out of this. But it was obviously very enduring because, for them, I was obviously most afraid our view in their eyes would change. And it didn't, at least not for the negative. So again, even when sharing with our kids, we learned a valuable lesson.
The only thing I was going to say is just the whole thing about the village and sharing. It's interesting that Station and I, much like Yolanda and Roy, keeping those things internal, not really sharing it open. The funny thing is at our church, we have this concept of like small groups, right? So in these small groups, that's an opportunity for you to connect with people and to really be open and sharing. You keep within a small group so you can have someone to communicate and not hold that in and let it out, and also be able to get proper feedback, whatever. So if there's anything I want to advise people is that even if maybe not as bad as we are or where we were, you have to share, you have to get out. Holding that in is one of the things. It's not healthy, right? So maybe it doesn't end the way ours did, which isn't fair, but you're causing strife within the relationship. There's some uneasiness, there's just this animosity that can build up and end up having it to impact you. So if there's one thing that should be a theme here, is just keep it to yourselves. Not having the proper outlet for it, it can be damaging. You might put yourself in situations that you may not have thought of if you had a chance to really open up and get off your chest, not only just with one another, but people in your key circle who can give you good feedback and give you good support.
And the critical part there, though, is that, and I'll just speak for myself, I certainly could have shared with people. I didn't want to, because I didn't want to hear what they were going to tell me to do. I knew what the right thing to do was. I just didn't want to do it. So I wasn't going to share, because they were going to tell me, girl, you're tripping. You need to end that immediately. And I didn't want to. So the bravery goes beyond just airing your dirty laundry or telling people. It's like when you hear that voice, it's telling you to say something for a reason. Obviously, I talk about in the book when I revealed my affair to Ed, that voice was very loud, and I couldn't deny it at that point in time. But that's one of the reasons we don't share. So be looking out for that, because we don't want to be told what we're thinking or what we're doing is wrong, because we want to continue it, to be quite honest. And so that's just another thing as it relates to kind of bravery and sharing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one more thing about that. The thing that I learned from all this is when you know that you should do something, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, that means it's the right thing.
Right, exactly.
If it's easy, then you would have done it.
Right.
But if it's uncomfortable and you feel uneasy about it, but you know it's the right thing, that's when you should do it.
Exactly. Okay, so if Carter is still quiet, I don't see any new, wait, I got a new chat. Let me just make sure it's not you guys. Okay, Ryan and Meg, would you like to share?
Yes, hello. Well, so Meg and I, like a couple of days ago, we actually went back and read a couple of the chapters of the book again, just kind of refresh our memories. And I was like, man, I just, was thinking about how long you guys been married, and I was like, man, it's about to be 25 years this year, right? If I'm not mistaken, for you guys. And for you two, you guys are more like my brother and sister, not only just my cousins. And initial reaction when Stacey, when you emailed me the book, or at least the first draft of it, initially was a little shock. But then,
like, what?
Yeah, like, no way. Like, really?
I was like, did you know this?
Yeah, and I was like, had no idea. But, at the same time, like you said earlier, Stacey, just even what Alexa said, just the courage you both had to share this, sharing your truths and, just the real reality of marriage. Marriage takes work, real work. And, for Meg and I, we're early in the game right now. We've really been married for 2 years. And like you said, now we have a little one. We have a little baby Carter now, who's 10 weeks now. So it's just seeing you guys, definitely we admire you guys very much, and just how you guys raised even Chris and Alexa. And some takeaways that I got from the book was, one is just, having your own, making your own happiness for yourself. Ed said in the book, he mentions that he felt responsible for your happiness, Stacey, and that putting a lot of pressure on someone, especially as a man, feeling that, you know, you have to provide that happiness for your wife no matter what. And that may give sacrifices that involve, but almost sometimes you may be feeling like you're giving up a part of yourself to do that. Another key thing, what I think the Anderson said earlier, Mr. Anderson mentioned, was finding that person you can confide in as a man, especially if you're having any trouble with your marriage. And that may be like a close friend of yours who's also married, and all understanding, hey, I can actually share this with him. Not feeling you have to figure it out all by yourself. Because I know as men, we do that. We do that a lot, is that no one else will understand. I got to figure this out on my own. So definitely finding that out and just like understanding that was a big thing I got from the book. I think some other things, but Maggie, what else you want to jump in real quick? Say anything?
Yeah, we're really proud of you guys. I can't imagine like how much courage this took to just share and write the story. And I know why you guys did it, because like you said, it's going to help so many people, because people don't share these stories, but it is very normal. And there's so much in the book like I could relate to, and things that you both were feeling, that I was like, yeah, I've experienced that, or I've felt that before. And just normalizing it, I think, is amazing that you did that. I think a big theme of the book was like communication, right? Like that communication is so huge. And I've always appreciated Ryan because he's really good at communicating. From what I like grew up around, like my own family, I didn't see good communication necessarily and experience that and understand that until I met Ryan, and I was already working on myself. And then he helped me kind of unlock better communication. And just reading the book is just more emphasis about how important it is to communicate with each other and have those tough conversations that are uncomfortable. I know like Ed avoided it in the book. Like he was trying to make you happy. He was trying to be the provider. He was like commuting so far to go to work and doing so much that like, he didn't want to, it seems like he didn't want to rock the boat even more, you know, and say, hey, like, I don't like living here in the cold weather. You know, I do need, I remember that part stood out to me because that's a real thing. You said, you know, you had Ed like seasonal, what's it called? Depression? Disorder.
Dissociation.
Yeah, seasonal something. I don't know. Anyways, but like that can be actually a need that you have, like where you want to live and feeling good about like the environment you're living in. And yeah, I love that you guys kind of like challenge couples to be able to identify what are your top 10 needs. Like I can't even say what mine are right now off the top of my head. So I feel like that's something we're gonna work on together, maybe like separately, and then come together and share. And I'm grateful for that. And what else? We took a few notes. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, just also in the book, when Stacey, early in your guys' relationship, because think about, you know, you got your marriage, it moved fairly quickly. You know, you guys got married a little over a year after dating, and then Chris came into the picture within your first year being married. So these things happen really rapidly versus like, you know, Meg and I, we traveled around the world and stuff and did all these, you know, things before we just, you know, we got married ourselves. It's just different, you know, but, you know, you guys had to figure out how to grow together a different way, you know, especially that you guys got married at, you know, at a young age. You know, you guys were married in your 20s. Versus, you know, Meg and I have been married, you know, I was 33 when I was married. So it's a little different in that sense of it. But also in the book, when you guys were dating, Stacey mentions when you had a conversation with my mother about Ed, and you saying that you almost cut it off with him. You almost, you know, called it quits on Ed early, thinking that this guy, you know, he cleans, he has a car, you know, he paying his rent on time, things like something's got to be wrong with him. So, and then my mom kind of looked you stern in the face and was like, don't you mess this up. Don't you let this man go just because you got something good going for you. And I mean, you know, obviously things worked out and they worked out for the better. But like I said, I'm very proud of you guys for what you've done with this book. And, you know, I'm very looking forward to what's going to happen next, you know, with this book and seeing where it's going to transpire to. But yeah, that's definitely some great takeaways we have from it.
That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
One thing, like, too, as a new mom, like, I can't relate as much, like, we weren't married as young, that's true, but like the part about how really it all, having kids adds such a huge stress, and that's something that I think, like, subconsciously I've started to think about more as we have our first child. I'm like, wow, we got to really, like, and then reading your book was perfect timing for us in this sense, because I'm like, oh wow, this is like, I knew this can affect people's relationships when you have children, and how it can change a marriage. But now your book is really, like, just emphasizing that more, and how it's just so much more important to, like, take the steps, like community and communication, and having your faith and a higher power, and just all of it, like,
Seriously.
so it was good timing to read that.
Good.
We needed that.
Yeah, I'm happy. Listen, I'm happy we caught you then, because it is really important from the foundation, especially once you start to have those kids, that you remember, again, in the words of our pastor, those kids are going to leave you. And I know that's hard to imagine now because Carter's only 10 weeks old, but at some point he's going to leave you. And you two need to have a foundation and a relationship between yourselves. And then Ed and I used to always say it was us against the kids. So like we had to be together because they were going to try to take us out. So once you have more than one, it's even more important. And then the other thing that I'll highlight real quickly, and then we'll move on to our next group, is one of the things that Megan said, I think is really important around, we all have childhood issues, traumas, things that we bring from our experiences growing up, and then we marry that with someone who has their own issues, and everybody has them. So the communication piece is so important because you have to talk about things that may seem perfectly normal to you, but they are abhorrent to your spouse. Like we talk about in the book, how me and my mom, my sister would be fighting and screaming and yelling at each other all the time. It was normal for us, but it freaked Ed out like nobody's business. And so it's important to understand what those things are for you. And as you join together as a couple, that you do talk about those things. That's really, really important because we all have them. If it's not communication, Megan, is something else. So I think that's a really important point. Okay, the Whites, do we still have y'all on? Yes, we do. Tasha and Kevin. So Tasha and Kevin, let's see, I've known Tasha since the 3rd grade. So a really, really long time. She is probably one of the people on this phone that's not family that knows me the best. And so there were even surprises for her in this book. And quite honestly, she knew what was going on at the time. She's one of the very few people who did. And so I thought it would be really important to hear from her perspective because she sort of knew some of the things that were going on when it happened, but I think she still found she and Kevin both found that there were nuggets and surprises in the book along the way. So you guys want to share?
Sure. Yes. Okay. All right. So I've been tapped to go first. Hello, everybody. I've met a few of you. Some of you I don't know. So how you doing? All right. So just to kind of get right to it, and I have a lot of notes here. The number one thing I want to say again, and I'll just echo what everybody else has said. And when I first read like the draft that you all sent us, you guys are brave. You know what I mean? This is so courageous just to kind of put yourself out there because, you know, I'm gonna jump into it because I don't want to be long-winded because there's a lot that we could talk about, but I'll say this first. The biggest thing that stood out to me was the communication piece, right? And going through what you went through, like, for example, you talked about letting things fester, right? You talked about letting things fester and letting them go, but they weren't really being let go because you was just in your head, like, you know what I mean? You're getting more and more pissed off about it. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, and bothered about it. And I'm gonna tie that to something else in a minute, but even all the way down to articulating your needs, right? Tasha and I were, what was it, like a weekend, 2 weekends ago, we're hiking and we're talking about the book. And she was just like, what was one of the biggest things that really like stood out to you? And the main thing was, if in order for me to really communicate with you or you two or with Tasha, because we went through similar situations, is I have to make myself vulnerable. And that is why it was hard to communicate and articulate what I may need or what I may want. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna show all my scars and why it bothers me, because at the end of the day, and all the couples on this call will agree with me or not, but this is the person who could hurt me the most, because she knows all the things that make me, you know what I mean? She knows the things. So I thought that number one, just by outlining some of the things that you guys outlined was huge. And that was what I really, really took from it. Communication, number one, but it's kind of hard to communicate when you feel like you're putting yourself out there and you're going to be vulnerable. Another big thing that stood out to me was, Mrs. Anderson said it. She said, and that's why, a lot of these notes that I have, all the other speakers said them already, but I'm gonna just kind of tap on them a little bit. You know what I'm saying? She talked about fear, right? That fear, like, nobody wants to put themselves out there, but where did it come from? We talk about and I have this stuff written down like in chronological order, but for me, what it means is it's experiences, those things turn into beliefs and values, and then all of a sudden that value turns into my attitude towards whatever that situation is. So based on that experience, all the way down to whatever I'm feeling is why I feel like this. And, Ed, and back in the day, because I'm gonna tell you, even when y'all came down here and we went hiking and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? But like you said, Tasha knew some of these things, and, and it ties me to one of my last points. That village thing is serious. And, and we talk about it, but it's serious. Can you imagine if either one of you had called the wrong person? You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things where, I'm sorry, say again. Oh, okay, that's just all right, but the bottom line is, if I want y'all to put this on the remix of the We Redo, right? Okay, so anyway, when you really, really think about it, and now I'm gonna go back to it, having that village in place ahead of time is what it's about. You know what I mean? Because a new person, a new friend could have came into your lives, and they're so jaded, you go to them and start talking to it, and they jack up everything else. So I just want to tell you that I think you're extremely brave. Last thing I'm gonna leave is with, remember why we fell in love. Like, our daughter just we've been together now for 30 years, been married for 25, and our daughter got married a few years ago. And one of the things that I said to both her and her husband, which is my son-in-law, he's an awesome kid. So I got lucky, y'all. I just want y'all to know I got real lucky. But I told them to remember why they fell in love, right? Remember why you fell in love. You talked all the time. You communicated all the time. You wanted to know things, and you were curious and intuitive. You know what I mean? You really wanted to be involved. Stay like that. And most importantly, stay curious and perspective. Based upon y'all's perspective on things that y'all went through, you know what I mean? It gives us a different perspective. Everybody on this call right now could push all of our problems in the middle of the table right now and be like, yeah, well, you know what? I'll take my problems back and I'll deal with them. You know what I mean? And I'll talk it out. And that's pretty much all I got. I mean, I got some other stuff, but I feel like I'm talking too much.
Save it for the podcast.
Yeah, Ed, you and I, we got that. Go ahead.
I'm Tasha. Of course, Stacia and I have been friends for a very long time. Stacia, she's right. She did tell me bits and pieces, not the full story, but I got a lot of it in advance. And we talked because we were going through things too. So we had a lot of conversations. But after reading the book, because obviously Stacia's my girl, I'm taking sides. You know what I'm saying? I'm all taking sides based on her and my conversation. But once I actually read the book, I had a whole different respect for Ed. And I mean, you are always my girl's husband, but now you are truly my brother, because I learned from you. I learned how to deal with some things that we were dealing with, because I looked through your eyes, to see how I could better understand my husband. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was great. I love the layout. I love the music. As you said on a podcast I recently seen, Stacia is a human beatbox. And so if it didn't have music, it just wouldn't have Stacia's touch. And I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack was awesome. It was an addition to the book. I loved it was faith-based, you know what I'm saying? And that's really, really important. Although Stacia and I were having conversations, and we were praying about it. We were talking about, God and where he is and how angry we were. And, why would he let this happen? And, this is that, the third, but like at the end of the day, like he put us through this, not so much for us, but maybe for us he used us to deliver a message, because everyone was looking at our relationships like, oh, they're the perfect couple. They've been together for so long. They this, they that. They had no idea that we were going through so many different challenges. And I think, I'm saying, being able to deliver this in this phenomenal book, and share it. Like, you guys were vulnerable. Like, y'all let it all out. Like, I wrote a book too, and I let a lot out, but not all out. But but we let it all out. And it provoked a lot of conversations in our home, even in our network. And of course, you guys are our tribe, a part of that tribe, but we do have a tribe here in Las Vegas as well. And we're telling them about the book, and even our daughter, she's in marital bliss right now. She's in her 3rd year of marriage. But she knows us, but being able to read your book, I think would be beneficial to them, because they are very much involved in their faith as well. And but they're in their space. These young people got it. You know what I'm saying? They put nothing before that at that age. That's a beautiful thing. So I could be long. Me and my husband could be long-winded. We could
like
talk
to
about this
talk.
all the time. But, we're gonna pass it on. But Station Ed, thank you for sharing this journey,
Yes.
making us a part of it, and sharing your journey.
Yeah, we appreciate you both very, very much.
Thank you guys so much. And we're going to share in just a moment that Ed and Kevin and some other fellows are going to do a podcast. Kevin has an excellent podcast, and the fellows are going to have their own little rap session. We need to schedule one for the ladies too, so we'll do that. But Kevin and Tasha were also a part of our early read crew, so they really helped make sure that the book is what you have today, and making sure we told the story the right way and that it was impactful. So we send you guys huge kudos and thank you so much for all of your help, because you guys really helped to make sure that it was good and that people would want to read it. So we thank you guys, and we appreciate all that you're doing to help amplify it and share it with other people too. Okay, next, my little sister, the only sister I got. And so she and her husband, Tony, have been married, 10, 11 years?
12. It'll be
12,
13.
oh my gosh.
12, it'll be 13 in October.
Time flies. Okay, one of those years, chalk it up to COVID and that I just lost count. But so they're going to share a little bit. And as I said, Tasha's actually known me longer than Shannon, I guess, because she's 8.5 years younger than me,
Right.
Almost. So anyway, but she obviously grew up with me, had the same, kind of experiences that I did kind of growing up. And so can't wait to hear from those two.
Great. Well, first of all, just thank you so much for this opportunity. It really is a blessing. And I was another person that probably got one of the earliest copies of the book, and, probably was one of the only other people that knew bits and pieces as well. But it was still really helpful to look at this with a fresh set of eyes. And so we just appreciate you thinking of us in terms of offering this testimonial. And of course, we have some notes here, just like everybody else. And what we share probably will be very, very similar in terms of some of the themes that we picked up on. But, first of all, Ed, thank you so much for the shout out, talking about yelling every morning. And I really appreciate that. That was between 13 and 14. And so I joked with Ed a couple of weeks ago when we were all home in Michigan that there was a lot of estrogen in that house. And so I'm glad that we didn't scare you off with all of that estrogen, because it was quite a bit. And when you live in it, that's just what we were used to. We were 3 girls, and so we were just accustomed to certain things. And I'm sure that, Ed, you probably took some of what you learned in that year. And even when Alexa was 13, 14, you may have seen some patterns of behavior that you had been exposed to before. But one of the first things that I really just noted is that, we were fortunate enough, even though our parents were divorced, we had our grandparents that were married for a long time. We had our late aunt, our beloved late aunt and uncle that were very significantly, you know, playing a hand in raising us as well. And they were together and committed as well. And one of the things that I always appreciated is that we didn't grow up with both of those examples of marriage being so close to us, but still feeling like, oh, I never saw my aunt and my uncle fight. I never saw my grandparents fight. No, I did. and so I think that that really helped because it showed that there is going to be conflicts that arise in marriages, and being exposed to that in its own way, you know, showed that there is no quote unquote perfect picture. And so as I kind of thought of the two of you, you really have been our marriage mentors. And it was great because, you know, your grandparents are one thing, your aunt and your uncle, like your parents' generation is another. But the fact that, you know, Stacia and I are truly best friends and we're so close, and you all are closer to us in age, we had that marriage mentor that it wasn't our peers, right? But it was still somebody that could help us along the way. And I think one of the things that I learned is just, there is no perfect picture, you know? You could look at your journey and say you guys met in your early to mid 20s, you fell in love, you got married, you followed the track of what was supposed to be the perfect picture. But behind that, this book really shows the work and the commitment that the both of you put in to build and sustain a really healthy and loving marriage, even in the lows, even at the low points, you know, making sure that you still kept that love and that commitment at the core.
No, absolutely. I tell you what, Shannon nailed it. And I think everybody, there's a recurrent theme here of communication, but I think it was hit on earlier, and it's something I'm going to touch back on. And it's just our childhood experiences, right? It took me reading the book to realize I was more closely aligned to Ed than I even thought. Like, you know, not, you know, my mother and father weren't married, right? And so, I grew up in a single parent household. I was the oldest and had a younger sister, right? So there were just responsibilities that I had, you know, there were just things that I had to own. One of the things that really resonated with me for Ed was, as it pertains to mom and just the scenario and really that actually played into the communication or the lack thereof, right? And that was something that was something that really hit hard for me. I could see that. I was like, oh, wow, okay. I could see how that could kind of permeate through, right? Conversely, my sister was younger and I was off to college well before she became of an age to argue with my mother. So all of that type of communication, I totally missed, right? And so because of that, that just was something that I would never have been able to been used to or had any experiences with or anything. And so you see a lot of similarities there. We definitely see how, just some of our experiences from our youth, how they have the ability to play a part in the things that we do as we get older and as we grow older. With that, also being said, so again, that always falls from the vein of communication, which I think was, one of the recurring themes here. The Bible speaks of, the fact that you want to have that not counsel, but wise counsel, mm-hmm. right? And you all touched on it a moment ago. It's like, hey, imagine if that got to the wrong person. Imagine if that was imagine if that was the wrong person and social media and, just super, you know what I mean? Like it could have went from 0 to 60 really, really fast. And so I think that there is something to be said for, the level of trust that you have in your circle and the level of trust that they have in you. And that's necessary for times such as this. I think that, there is a lot to, as it pertains to sacrifices. I think that there were a lot of sacrifices that Ed felt that he made earlier on. And it was definitely for the betterment of the, just the trajectory of the family, right? I think that, Stacia knew and could kind of see how things would be moving on. And I was thinking about when they were in PA and then they were going back to MSU. And it's like, wait a minute, what? Wait a minute, huh? Wait a minute, whoa, time out. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? That would have been me. I would be like, hold on, like, what are we doing, right? You know what I mean? So I mean, it was just so funny in that instance to just see so many of those, you know, those similarities, even in patterns of thought in things of that nature, right? So that was really awesome. I do think that number one, of course, I knew nothing about this, right? And so, you know, basically from a timeline perspective, this is all.
Because I took it to the grave.
Yeah, like nothing, right? So keep in mind, she is not about to get married, right? You know what I mean? I don't know.
We have just gotten married.
You know what I mean? Just get married. You know. So I'm just
My
like,
sister, she kept it on clamp.
Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah. What is this? What is this? You know. So you know, it was, but it was just something. You know, I think when you think back on hindsight is always 20/20, right? And that's always going to be the case. I think that, you know, there's just a level of stick-to-itiveness, you know, that we have, and you know, I'm glad that you all have it and are continuing to operate in it. I think that, you know, the Dallas move was good.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, given everything that was transpiring, that type of clean break was needed, because it may have been difficult to try to navigate through that, being so close to what was still,
Right.
you know, what was still at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that also gave, you know, Ed his much needed warmth, thus the pool in the back, and the whole nine. I think it was great. So definitely from a communication perspective, I think that, you know, we learned a lot from there. And, you know, and I'll just say, just from the feel and flow of the book. Number one, y'all know I do music. I love it. So the weaving of the different songs and what those songs, and even certain parts of the songs that resonated with where you were at the time, I thought was great as well. And I think that when you think about the easeability of the read, you know, that helps too, and it helps to kind of connect that as well. So, you know, from a creativity perspective, oh yes, you know what I mean. That was great as well. A++++.
Okay, so true to form, I have a script here, and Tony has totally gone off script. Okay, which is to be expected. But the one thing I do want to leave off with is, because a lot of the other things that we learned from the book has already been touched upon in terms of really learning each other's needs, how to cherish each other, not take each other for granted and get caught up so much in the routine. Tony touched on, you know, being self-aware and knowing about where some of your issues stem from. Kevin, I love how you kind of weaved all of that experience and values, and that shapes your attitude towards certain situations. I may have to quote you, so I'm gonna reach out to you on that, because that was masterful. But the one thing that I will leave our testimony off with is, you know, one of the things that I have learned from the both of you is just the power of forgiveness, and that only comes through God. And, you know, Tony and I's marriage was on the brink for quite some time, and, you know, only through the power of God were we able to come back together and truly reconcile. And Ed, I think that you mentioned this earlier, you know, when you can recount some of these stories that you guys have recounted in this this gem right here, and you can, you know, it doesn't resurface old wounds, and you can read through it and talk about it without fighting, and it doesn't conjure up old arguments. I think that's a true testament to God and just his love and his forgiveness for us. And hopefully that translates into, you know, how we relate with one another as husband and wife. And I just remember there were so many times when, you know, Tony and I were going through our rough patch, where Stacia would say, I'm not going to tell you what to do. And that was such a shift for me, because in addition to being my big sister and my best friend, she also is kind of like my pseudo mom. So I'm used to her telling me what to do. And she's like, nope, not telling you what to do. You know, all I will do is I'll pray with you. I will, you know, I'll read with you. I'll read the Bible with you. I'll read, you know, I'll give you, you know, some nuggets of wisdom. And that once again goes back to wise counsel, but I'm not going to tell you what to do next. And it really forced me to grow up and put on my big girl pants and be a wife, you know? So I really have learned from the both of you just how you can truly move on. And then, you know, your marriage just shines even brighter after you come through the storm. So we love you. We love you. We love you. We are going to be publicizing this book like we wrote it ourselves. Like I said, because I feel like I need some royalties or some type of compensation or payment, since I am not painted in the most positive light in the book, but I'm not going to take that any kind of way. I love the both of you, and this is a great book. Congratulations to you
Sis,
both.
I was over here like, aha, ha. I get it now.
Learning lessons.
And
That's so
let me
funny.
say, if you can move these books, like, you know, people move like the cookies and the Girl Scout cookies,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
we
You
need
can get a little bit
Hey,
on
I'll
the
be looking for my kickback, bro. I'll be looking for my
Exactly.
kickback.
You need to get those boxes out there and get off on Peachtree Street and
Yeah.
start selling something.
Yeah, you know, some of y'all at ATL need to catch these lessons. And we do. We love you guys, obviously, so much. And we appreciate everything that you shared. And we'll continue to share about the book. And that's important, that we continue to share these things with our networks. And that's why we wrote the book. We did not write it to get rich, obviously. Like, this whole promotion of a book is a second job. And we both got full-time, you know, time and a half jobs. But we want as many people as possible to make sure that they get their hands on this book, because we really feel like it can help, and it's a little bit fun too. Like Tony was talking about, the playlist is not to be overlooked. It's a lot of fun. So if you have the book, you've seen the QR code that you can scan and listen to this wonderful playlist of ours. So, okay, rounding out our feedback is my ace Boone Coon. So before I had an actual little sister, I had a cousin sister, and that cousin sister is Frida. And boy, we have been through, she was, you know, around when Ed and I were dating, right? So we talk about being there in the very beginning. We used to lay up in her room in Spartan Village and watch movies together, all three of us. So she knows a lot about us and our overall journey. So Freak It Free, you ready to share? Is she still on? Oh, there she is. Hold on. Ed's gonna ask you to unmute. There you go.
I'm so sorry. I think I was trying to press unmute and had a delay. But yeah, oh my gosh, you went back to my gangster rap name in college, right? So, and thank you for the intro. Absolutely. Oh, my sister is here from Detroit, so that's easier than that. She's tuning in. That's Dolores. So yeah, talk about going back. Yeah, I was around when Ed and Stacia, you know, they weren't a thing. You couldn't like combine their names and come up with a new name as a together couple. But yeah, I actually thought Ed was gonna stick around anyways, because yeah, he came to Spartan Village and he watched the Stephen King, The Stand. And that's back in the day when we had VCRs. So we had like 4 or 5 tapes, and had to come back and you can't fast forward. You can't, like, it's just, you didn't have like subtitles, all that. So I thought you were saying Ed, and I'm glad that I was right. Even though I didn't put it out there, I kind of knew. Also, when you did that Michael Jackson at your wedding, I was like, this guy, he's gonna stick around. But so in terms of the book, you know, I have to just pause to say how authentic, you know, how transparent in a world where people are just putting up smoke screens and clouding conversation and misconstruing information, that this is so authentic, so raw. Like, it does nothing but capture you and grabs you. So when I got my copy of the book, I read it from, you know, cover to cover. I didn't stop. I was like, you know, whoa, what happened? What happened? So I just really appreciate that. And again, I took notes like others said. I thought it was really important how Stacia's personality came through in the book, just because she has a big personality, and anybody who knows her knows that that's what it is, right? And so I could see, or I can hear the undertones in the book that, yeah, maybe at some point as Ed, with that role of husband, there's certain things that you're supposed to do as husband, right? But you're now following your wife. It kind of looks like, are you on the Stacia show, the Stacia boat, and you're along for the ride? So that's got to do something to the male psyche, the male ego, as you're dealing with what you should be versus what you are. So that's one point about marriage. Marriage is uniquely yours. It can't be identified based on what, grandparents had, what mom and dad have. Because sometimes when you look at those relationships, you think, I don't necessarily know that I want that. I remember my great-grandmother, Bay, had stating a quote to me. She said, "It's not ham or meat. You won't miss none if somebody takes some." Now I'm gonna let that just hang with you for a minute. But I'm like, Bay, I don't know that that's something that I want to do. I'm gonna know if somebody took my ham or my meat. Like, I'm gonna know. So again, the relationships that you were told from your grandparents and your parents, they're just not necessarily the things that work for your relationship because they're uniquely yours. And it's interesting. So Stacia started to reveal what occurred with her, what was going on in her relationship, as she found out that I was in trouble, finding myself in trouble with my marriage. And I was like, Stacia, I can't hear God. I can't hear what is being said. And she said, well, perhaps you can't hear because you're far away. I mean, I got on a plane. I'm in Orlando, Florida. I got on a plane and I said, I need to get home. And so I spent some time in Chicago, some time. And so I didn't even share with Stacia what happened. Some circumstances, she had my phone in there, she found out. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Maybe it's because I'm not there or closer to the relationship that I can't, see what's going on. And at that time, I have to say that I still did not, in terms of authenticity and transparency, I still did not share everything. And it's like, we have these considerations. We are thinking what people are going to tell us, or what they're going to think about us, or what they're going to think about our choices. And so we're so considerate that we don't want to go outside to kind of deal with, the root issue. So I'm just appreciative of how this was so eloquently told, just so well put together. I'm going back to my notes now. The other thing about when Stacia mentioned in the book is she wasn't ready to deal with God. And she was like, God, we ain't cool. So that's one thing that I really take in. The relationships are relationships, right? And so, yes, you have a relationship with God. That's real. So there are going to be times when you are happy, grateful, thankful, and like other times where you're like, nope, you're off. Nope, you didn't get it. Nope, you didn't hear me. And that's just God. It's funny, my daughter is 5 and she said to me, I asked her, what did you learn in school the other day? And she said, Mom, I learned about capacity. It's about filling things up as far as it can go. And I'm like, see, that's it. God is building your capacity. He's enlarging your territory so that you can take in more, so that more can be poured into you. So I just, so many parts of this book, especially that piece about childhood traumas, it's so interesting how something that happened to you at 12, something that happened when Ed said, if there was a disruption, we might not be living here tonight. We might have to move. So I can identify with, just things being tumultuous. And I mean, my mom dated a guy and he wasn't the greatest guy. And one day we would go to Rent-A-Center and then we'd have the living room furniture. I'd come back and it would be gone. So I get when you say like, I'm not really used to and can't deal with. I'm a person who, there's a lot of estrogen in my house, but the arguing, I'm like, I remember asking Aunt Debbie one time, how is it that you and Uncle Chuck are married? Like, because they had an argument. And she was just like, I'm not easily offended. I'm just saying, like, there's so many nuggets in this book that kind of just tell you that there is more. Seek more. And as Tony said, you got to be all in. You got to be completely all in. And I know you all may not, I know that a lot of people have, friends and you want to show your representative and your imposter to your friends. It's really getting to the nuts and bolts of things that you find out that your friends are dealing with the same exact issues or about to deal with the same issues. So those sharings, those are huge and really important. So I just want to quote the infamous, I don't know what to call her, socialite Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. There is a scene where she says, "I'm looking for love, real love, ridiculous, inconvenient, consuming, can't live without each other love." And as far as I can say, what I read and what I have seen and what I know about this couple, that's where you are. It's inconvenient. It's, that kind of love that you can't live without, but I want to kill you. It's that kind of love, like, let's make it, let's hold on. And so those things are important. And I'm just really grateful to be able to be on the journey with you, to hear about your story, to know more, and to thank you for just being real, because people go to the grave and you never know what has happened and how they made it through. They don't want to tell you. And so telling you is step one. So thank you, love you.
You are awesome. I swear, there was, how many times did I say preach? And I saw Tasha and Kevin raising the roof, and I can't see everybody, but I can see Tasha and Kevin, exactly. So y'all know that, Frida has a whatever profession she'd like in the future as it relates to the pulpit, because there were a lot of great nuggets in there. And one that she brought that I just love is our relationship with God is as real as any other relationship. And I never would be able to say that with conviction, know it here, not just know it here, if we hadn't gone through this. So as we start to look back and we think about why did we go through this, that's probably one of the reasons we went through it, because now I know, like, I can be mad at him and it's actually okay. He didn't let me go. There was no punishment for me being mad at him. But obviously I can see how he brought us through. And that's just so super critical, that our relationship with God is as real as any other relationship. And it was fortified for us through this. Okay, so just a couple of things as you guys think about what you've heard here today. We do ask you to continue to share this with your networks. As you have book clubs and church groups and friends that could benefit from this, please feel free to let them know where they can find us. Obviously, we're both on Facebook. We do have a page called We Redo on Facebook, so you can find us there and like the page to get updates. We're both on Instagram, we're both on Twitter, and then we actually have a We Redo too handle on Twitter too. So we want you guys to make sure you follow us for more information. Just a couple of things here real quickly that we're going to have the opportunity to continue to share about the book, maybe not in as long a format, but one of my sorority sisters has this awesome radio show called Black Tea Sip. So we're going to be spilling the tea on the 26th of February with her. And that's available on YouTube, on Clubhouse, and on Facebook. Kevin, who you have seen here, and he's had the chance to share with us, has an awesome podcast as well called Time is Life. And so he and the fellas are working on something a little special to share with the fellas specifically. We had the chance last week to record and post something with our good friends also in Las Vegas, Kathy Dabney and Reggie Smith, her husband, on YouTube, just about the book and writing about the book. And then there's a couple of podcasts that we'll be on. I don't have dates yet, but again, if you like the We Redo page on Facebook, we'll make sure that it's posted there so you can continue to follow there. And then, of course, we like gifts. So if you share for the rest of the month of February, we're going to be looking. We're going to be looking at those shares. We're going to be finding out who's got friends that have purchased the book. And so we're going to select several random winners. And we've got a couple of books, devotionals for couples, little date night game cards for couples, some organic soaps, some sweet treats. So a whole bunch of stuff that we'll be giving away. And then we are going to look for somebody who gets this shared kind of really broadly. So, hey, I have a book club, and they're gonna I'll buy the book, and we're gonna read the book, and we're gonna discuss the book. we'd be happy, of course, to join if you'd like us to. But you know, there's a little bit more of a special gift, maybe some wine coming your way for sharing that. So we just ask that you guys remember to try to tag one or both of us. We have a lot of fun hashtags that you can use, obviously. We ask that you share the link to the book, obviously, so people can know where to buy it as well. What else were you going to say? Were you going to say something? Because I was just going to open it up.
No, you did good.
To see if people had anything else that they wanted to share. Now it's like kind of random, open sharing time. Anybody have any questions? Was there anything in the book that you thought, oh, now I want to hear a little bit more about that? We're willing and able to answer any of those questions for you guys right now.
Hey, Stacia. Hey, Ed. It's Joy. So I would say, I guess I took a different approach, just reading the book as a whole, as I am single. And I know that just reading through like a lot of the different scenarios, the whole meeting, all of that, I think that for so long, I've just had the approach of, yeah, I'm not going to deal with that. Oh, I'm not going to deal with that. Oh, I'm not going to, you know, and I feel like in the long run, it's not only sheltered me, but it's allowed me to experience a lot of, well, maybe I should open up just a little bit more. Everyone's not perfect. What is God trying to show me? What are some of the things in life? Because just listening to everyone that are married, like on the call, give feedback, it's been very eye-opening. I'm very appreciative, not only just for the friendship, but it's just seeking in to see that love conquers all. And through it all, that you all still put God first, as well as family and the direction that you're wanting to have over your household. So appreciative and great discussion today. Glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Soror Joy. And by the way, all these lovely, awesome pictures. Yeah, that's my Soror Joy. Thank you so much. We had such a great experience with you, even though it missed it on my hair. So it was definitely different by the end, but we appreciate you and glad that you got a lot out of the book too. And definitely, you know, we don't think that this is only for married people, right? There's a whole bunch in here we wish we had known before we got married. So maybe we wouldn't have stepped on some of these landmines, you know. We tell stories about how there were times when what we were doing, we knew was wrong, right? But if we had known, you know, maybe I should just talk to my spouse about this. Maybe I should just talk to Ed about this, that I'm not getting this from him, as opposed to, you know what, I'm getting it from somewhere else. So I'm good with that right now. Like I'm getting what I need over here. It was almost like for me, you know, it was almost like for me, hey, I'm putting two people together and ta-da, I'm getting what I need. And to be honest, it was very selfish. But where my headspace was at the time was, I've told him 1,000,000 times, this is what I need, right? And we've all been there. I've told him 1,000,000 times, and there's just some things, and he admits even to it today, he's just not great at. Like it takes effort, it takes work. And for me, I was like, I am done reminding you that I need you to tell me I'm beautiful. I'm done reminding you when I got this other guy who has no issues doing it whatsoever, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and get what I need on both sides, right? As wrong as that is, that's kind of where my headspace was. And so I think it's really important, again, regardless of your current marital status or situation, for you to understand, like, that's still not okay for you to be able to, you know, well, I'm happy, you know, and so mama's getting what she needs. So I don't really care that it's absolutely positively contra to what God would have me do.
And I would add on to it too. I mean, I think some of us, we always have a challenge of, you know, I want to wait for that perfect situation. And I want to wait when this is right, you know, and there's no if we're right. I mean, sometimes, you know, sometimes we put blinders on, or we put blockers up because, well, like Kevin said, you know, we don't want to be hurt, or we're just, you know, we're very protective, right? You know, it makes it have to be raw and authentic. So sometimes if we're trying to you think about it from that perspective too. You have to be willing. You have to be willing to get in the game, right? If you want to be a part of it, you have to be willing to get in the game. It's the same thing with just building that relationship with God too. You have to be in it. Like Frida said, if you're away from God, you can't expect those answers or to hear that voice unless you're willing to get close. So I'd also advise on that as well.
I took it off the screen share so I could see all of your beautiful faces, because I haven't been able to see all your beautiful faces so far. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Oh, hey, Karen. Anybody else have anything they want to add, anything they want to ask? Truly, you can ask us anything. We have already been through everything in writing this book. So it's not gonna take us back to a bad place on Valentine's Day. If you have questions for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that, oh my goodness, okay, I don't remember who said it, but just definitely wise counsel. And what should have, when you are able to speak about an experience that you've had, and you're able to share that experience, and even if you have a conversation, that conversation doesn't take you back to that initial,
right?
I think that definitely resonates with you guys. And I think that's so important because like you said at the beginning, you can move forward. It is possible. And I think, I know that when others see and hear your story, they're gonna look at you and say, okay, yeah, it is possible. When you are in it, you have absolutely no idea, or you don't even want to know there's an idea that you can move forward and you can be happy again and you can be joyful again. You don't see all of that.
That's right.
So it's important to see that it is possible.
It is possible. And like I said, I mean, I almost wish we could have had this experience so that my prior self could see it, because there were times, and I did write about, I'd cry literally all morning on the way to work. I'd pull it together for work. I'd cry all the way home from work. I mean, it was just terrible. I mean, I can't explain that pain and that feeling of I'm never going to get over this. It's not possible. So I wish, of course, that my prior self could see myself now and go, oh, it is possible. You can actually be back in a place where you're happy and you're fulfilled and you have a trusting relationship. But so we do hope to be a little bit of that beacon of light maybe for people. And I feel like in today's society, people jump so quick to divorce. It's always, if you don't like it, if you're not happy, just leave. And we've been so thankful and lucky to be under the counsel of some really good pastors in our past who helped us understand no way. And our pastor now, one of his favorite things when he's talking about somebody who comes to him for counsel, he's like, but pastor, you don't understand what this fool did. And he loves to say, well, he's your fool now. You made the decision, right? So you've got to figure out how to work it through. And it's not as easy as just, I'm going to get divorced. And this society has made it so easy to get divorced. And don't get me wrong, there are places and times for which maybe that is appropriate. But I feel like people just, boy, do they pull that trigger so fast. And it's like pulling a ripcord on a parachute. Not that I've ever skydived and I don't plan on it. Tasha does, I do not. Yeah. But people jump to that so fast. And, we have just learned that you got to work through it and the relationship can be so much better on the other side. Anybody else? Any questions? Amber, I see your little boxes lighting up.
Hello, I'm Amber. I've become familiar with Stacia and through MSUVA. So I just wanted to say I look up to you guys, and I haven't read the book yet, but I got it 2 days ago, so I will. And as a single person, this is really important to listen to everybody, especially the couples that have been married. I mean, they're, the married couples, because I think especially leading up to Valentine's Day, it's like you idealize marriage sometimes and you idealize relationships and stuff. So I think this is a good reminder that yes, love is beautiful and marriage is beautiful and all that jazz, but it also takes work and there's no perfect people and perfect relationships. So thank you for sharing. And I'm so excited to listen. To read the book now. So thank you guys.
Good. You're
Thanks,
gonna
Amber.
love it. You're gonna love it. And she's so right. I think all of us do that. I still do that sometimes. Like, you know, I used to watch soap operas with my grandmother. I got hooked on them. I still watch Young and the Restless every day. But I got hooked on them, you know, spending summers with my grandmother. And so you have that like soap opera love, the Grey's Anatomy love, you know, and you're just like, that is so not real. If you get any moments of that in a marriage, that's fantastic. And I remember Michelle Obama, when she was doing her Becoming tour, she said that, you know, if you get 80% happiness in your marriage, so that's, you just take a work week, 4 out of the 5 days, boy, you're doing really good. I mean, 80% is great, but you're going to have that one day that sucks. Even with a Barack Obama, you know, one day absolutely stinks. And I think that's important because there is no perfect relationship. There is no perfect marriage. You're going to have to work for it if you want it. It can be really nice a lot of the time. And I would say in our relationship, it's really nice a lot of the time. We don't fight very frequently at all. And so I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, it's not a, you know, a pie in the sky. Always everything is lovey-dovey, that's for sure. Anybody else? Mom, do you want to share anything? I will say, you know, when my mom read this book, of course, being a mother, her first thing was, oh, are you sure you want to share this?
Don't call your mom.
Well, that wasn't quite it. That wasn't quite it because, like Alexa, I am your mom, and I knew something was going on. I didn't know exactly what, but I did know just from some of our conversations and just our communication patterns that something was off. So what I wanted to say is that both Bob and I are here, and we've talked about the book, and not for regrets or anything, but you know, we didn't grow up in an era like that. And what you just said about how easy or how written in stone it was, if somebody cheats on you, then you got to get a divorce. Okay, that was kind of ingrained into just how people had conversations back in those days. And I just remember my mother, it was just a rule, you know, you don't tell family business, okay? You just don't do that. Even though I'm sure that there was a lot of family business going on in that relationship. But, you know, so just to hear this, we were like, boy, maybe if we if we were a different time, that we may have tried a little harder with your dad, with Bob's ex-wife, you know, we might have tried something a little different, but in the end, we know that God has a script for all of us, and that was our life script for us to find each other after a long, long, long time of being a single mom. So I'm sorry if I traumatized you.
Listen, Mom's like, wait a second. I feel like I'm being fully exposed. It's not that, but everybody has just experiences that it's not up to the parent to determine how the child absorbs that information, takes that in for how they're supposed to behave in the future. It just is what it is. But all of us have different ones. Some of them are, I shouldn't maybe call them childhood traumas. Some of them are just experiences, because some can be very positive, but your spouse didn't grow up that way. And there's still a clash, because they're like, what the heck are you so happy for? Right. And you're just like, la, la, la. Like, you know, one of the things we tell our kids all the time, y'all never struggled. Now, I can't say I struggled when I was a kid. Like I wasn't hungry. I didn't have to go without. I wasn't the first person in my family to go to college, all that stuff. Or, well, for my husband, obviously the situation was different. And so there can be times, not that he's ever done this, I don't think he has, but that, you know, the fact that I didn't struggle could be an issue for him, right? Because he's like,
you never had to struggle. You never had to go through what I went through. But it was up to me to, and both of us, to understand what were some of those triggers. Maybe that's a better word, because trigger could be a positive word for each other.
I was just going to say that, you know, I consider myself to have had a wonderful childhood. I really did. I mean, and again, if you look on the surface, it was, you know, we had a house, you know, professional dad and mom, and we had church and all those things. So, but boy, once I got into adulthood, I wish I had, like you said, some of those struggles, so that I could have been prepared for some of the things that were to come along.
You know, it's funny, Stacia talks about, you know, perspective and everything like that, because I think there's sometimes, like, especially when you start off new in a marriage and, you know, you're both, you know, we were both out of college, you know, a little bit. I think there are some times where she's like, well, I don't know how it's going to happen. I was like, babe, this is what we got to do. And she's like, well, how do you know? I was like, because I knew how to deal with things when I didn't have it out. So this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is the best plan to do it. And she was looking like, well, I'm not sure. I'm like, trust me, right? You didn't have to worry about, you know, like I think Tony talked about, you know, being raised in a single family home. You know, you have different challenges, different perspectives and things, how you handle it. And something that, you know, even when her parents got divorced later, but she hadn't had to do with certain things. So that part of our marriage, you know, if I had been thinking about it now, was really, there were parts of me that I was guiding her as well. You know, I know we talked a lot about like how Stacia, it might be perceived that Stacia was leaving because, you know, she was getting the MBA and she had the jobs and stuff, but there were aspects that I was providing to the marriage too that I didn't recognize it. And those are things that festered and caused trouble. But when I stepped back, I was like, you know what, it wasn't that she was necessarily leaving, but we had stages in the marriage where, you know, we were partnering together and getting to a certain destination. And I had just as much to do with that as she did. Whereas as I looked at it differently, like, you know, Stacey's trying to drag me back to Michigan for what? The NBA pro, but you're already here at Penn State. Why are we going back and moving in with your mom? I'm like, what's going on here? So being able to have that conversation, and now we look at it and we kind of chuckle about it. But back then it was something hard. But just, you know, realizing that there are different points and times in a marriage where you're in a relationship, you all are adding value. It's just being able to understand that sometimes it's not the path that you think is going to be the most obvious. Sometimes it's a very long trail, and marriage is a long-term commitment. This is not something that's going to solve itself overnight. I mean, we all continually are working on it, but long-term, you know, we all have a say and value in all how you look at it as well.
Yep.
And again, as always, the importance of the village. And I'm just looking on the screen right now. And, you know, as we build villages, and, you know, you got one of your aunts on the screen right now who, you know, your Aunt Karen. I mean, I had, you know, people asked about being a single mom, but I had some amazing friends, and not all of them were in the same situation that I'm in. You know, Karen and Joe, they've been married probably 50 years, you know, or hitting up on it, you know, and then I also had, you know, my single girls who never had been married before. So that important of those different perspectives is really, really important, because, you know, you've got one end and then you've got the single person that says, hey, let's go out every night, you know, which you can't do because you're a single mom and you got kids, you know. So, but each perspective is very important. So I just congratulate you, and I am proud of you, because yes, it does take courage. It does take courage. And, you know, just remember that as the book gets more widely distributed. But I also know you did ask me that question. I said, if they come at you, I know if somebody comes at you, I know you know how to respond.
Correct. That's of course my mother. She was like, Mom, you know me, I'm good. It's not going to happen. I'm not worried. I don't know how Aunt Karen, so it's funny because Aunt Karen and Uncle Joe are, you know, we're friends with both of my parents, still are friends with both of my parents. So, you know, they've been divorced now forever. But that's a hard role to play, is like, how do you be a friend to both sides of the couple once they get divorced? So they have traversed that beautifully in being able to support both sides. And that's important too, because, as I said, I mean, yes, I felt like my mom could do anything, which is why I had that I don't need anybody, because I saw that my mom could do whatever needed to be done. So I just couldn't figure out that need part. But I appreciate it because everything that we did go through made us stronger. I appreciate the fact that y'all didn't run my husband off, because y'all almost did. But I do appreciate that. Anybody else have anything they want to share? I know we have kept you for far longer than we actually anticipated, but I love the share and I don't want to cut it off. So is there anybody else that wants to share something?
I would just add one more point, Stacia, and
Yeah.
that's that, you know, as you consider all the decades of your life, each decade has a different challenge. You know, if you think about the decade of your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, each of those 10-year periods has different challenges. Once you get married thinking that you are who you're going to be as a spouse.
That's right.
But you're really not. You know, just like babies don't come with an owner's manual. You know, you don't get your husband or wife knowing which buttons to push and what to do and what not to do. You kind of have to grow into it. I think that your book in some ways shows single people and married people some of the things to do and some of the things not to do. So I think it's very important for them to consider these things, and to also look for a village like you talked about in terms of your support team.
Yeah, yeah.
If people can be honest with one another and be authentic, maybe they'll grow.
Right.
Maybe they'll save a marriage, and one of the critical things for us to do in America is try to figure out how to save more of our marriages instead of just saying, well, F it then, and walking away.
Oh,
right.
I mean, preach. That is a word right there. Because like I said, society would have you to believe, because it is so easy and affordable sometimes even, they would just have you think, hey, just pull the ripcord, right? And no harm, no foul. And that's not always the best answer. So how can we really create a new paradigm, especially, you know, for us, it's important to create a different paradigm because we do have children. But for us to create that different paradigm in America at large, I think is huge. And I just thank all the people that did join us, because we had single friends on, we had longtime married friends on, we had the newbies on, and hopefully everybody learned something from this book. And again, that's why we really are, you guys, I feel like I have been obnoxious with sharing. I probably have been obnoxious with sharing. I will continue to be obnoxious with sharing. We invite you to be obnoxious with sharing. But again, it's not so that we can get rich. We're not going to get rich off of Amazon royalties. And I have had some people, I love this, some like people who have been in the hustle game for so long, they're like, now should I buy it directly from you because you're going to make more money? I'm like, listen, just buy it from Amazon. You'll get it in 3 days. Like, that's not important to me. I do know some people who have bought the book as gifts for other people, so that they can read it. And just, that's our goal, is for somebody to go, oh, I don't have to get a divorce. I can at least try to work through this. And then the last thing I will say that we try to be good at, we're not perfect, is we do talk about our experiences with counseling in the book. It is important, even when you're doing well, go to counseling anyway. Figure out how you can go from good to great, from great to greater, right? I think we tend to think of counseling as only when we're in trouble, but it's really important. And again, this is a lesson that came from our pastor now, is that he and his wife do this every single year to make sure they stay strong and figure out how to go from height to height, because you can't always figure it out by yourself. You think you can, but you can't. You can get yourself in trouble by yourself. But figuring out how to go from good to great, sometimes it takes somebody who is experienced and learned in helping couples to do that. So that's something that we just encourage everybody to think about. Counseling isn't only a punishment or something is going wrong, but how can we make things go even better than they're going today? Anything you want to say to close, my love?
Nope. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. We appreciate the time you spent on Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
I want you guys to go enjoy your time together. Or if you're single, for our single friends.
Hey, we love you too. There's still love for Valentine's Day. We love you, whether you have romantic love or not. That's not what this day is about.
Call your parents, call a sibling, call
Exactly.
a family friend, say you love them, all that. We really appreciate the time you guys taking out today.
Thank you. Keep sharing. Love you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. I love all the waves. All the waves. That's a really good picture, Megan.
Of course it is.
That's a really good picture. I need a picture that looks like that, but I need to get some weave in my hair first.
You don't need it.